Santa Cruz and Juliana have released the Bronson and the Roubion trail bikes. These are their 27 5-inch wheeled 150mm travel bikes that are kind of designed to do a bit of everything. They are actually the same bike based on the same frame, but Juliana paint theirs a little bit differently and their build kits vary slightly from the more unisex ones on the Bronson to suit the female form a little better. This basically means the contact points, so your saddle, handlebars, grips, that sort of thing, but the main bulk of the bike is identical to the Bronson. The frame features 150mm of travel for the rear wheel, and all the bikes will come with 160mm forks. The big change for the latest version of the bikes is that the Vpp suspension has moved from an upper link actuated shock to a lower link actuated shock, like we saw on the most recently released Nomad. Santa Cruz claim that having the shock actuated by the lower Vpp link makes the bike more suited to descending. That means there's the classic things such as a supple start to the stroke, a fair bit of support in the mid, and then it ramps up towards the end of the stroke. However, unlike the Nomad, the Bronson is designed just for an air shock, and that's because the air shock spring rate ramps towards the end of its stroke much more than a coil one does. With the Nomad you could run both because the linkage provided a lot of the progression. On the Bronson it is designed pretty much just for an air shock. It is, however, still a VPP design, and that means that the rear triangle is joined to the front triangle by two counter-rotating little links. The bikes all come with 27.5-inch wheels, but you either get normal sized tyres with a 2.4 at the back and a 2.5-inch wide trail tyre at the front based on a 30mm rim, or you get plus options running a 2.6-inch tyre on either 35 or 37mm internal width rims. Santa Cruz and Juliana say that the 27.5-inch wheel size is sort of the fun wheel size. So maybe that suggests that this is a bike for playing around in your local woods, maybe hitting the bike park a little bit, but perhaps not if you're looking for a flat-out enduro machine. But it's definitely the case that the suspension actuation and the kit that is plugged onto the frames, this is a bike that is definitely suited to going down a hill. So you get the 160mm fork up front, all the bikes have a 200mm front rotor and a 180 at the rear. There's also obviously internal dropper routing. There's a threaded bottom bracket which is great for home mechanics, but also all the bikes in the range get a piggyback shock and eyelets which are bearings in rather than bushings. Santa Cruz say that obviously the piggyback shocks give better performance on long downhills, and having the bearings in there gives a much smoother feel to the suspension. Santa Cruz have placed a flip chip in the linkage system to give high and low settings for the geometry. That's because there is a slight difference in ride height between a plus tyre and a regular tyre. So if you have the plus wheels in there, naturally you'd want to put it in the lower setting, and this gives a 65.1 degree head angle. Personally, I'd probably keep it in the low setting anyway, because I'd rather have that slightly lower BB and slacker head angle even with the slightly smaller regular width tyres. In that low setting you get a 455mm reach, there's a 13.8mm BB drop, and the chainstays are set at 430mm. This gives a wheelbase of 1215mm, which is pretty standard. It's not super long, but it's also not crazy short. The general build kits between the Santa Cruz and the Juliana bikes tend to be the same at the price points. However, there are 9 Santa Cruz models and 6 Juliana models. Some of that difference comes from the forks and the drivetrains used on those different frames. If you're buying a bike with regular width tyres, you'll get the Reserve 30 wheels, so these have a 30mm internal width for the carbon rim. If you buy the Plus models, then you'll get the Reserve 37 carbon wheel set, and as you might guess, this has an internal width of 37mm to give extra support to the wider 2.8-inch tyres. The base spec has an aluminium frame obviously, and that comes in at £3,399. You get a RockShox Yari fork with 160mm of travel, and the rear end is controlled by a RockShox Super Deluxe shock. You get the new SRAM NX Eagle 12-speed group set, which has an 11-50 cassette, and the wheels are based around the WTB I29 rim. The top spec bikes do come in at £8,399 in the UK, and that is an awful lot of money. But you do get that top CC frame set. You get a Fox 36 factory fork along with a top-end Super Deluxe rear shock. You also get their Reserve carbon wheels and a full XTR group set, so it's pretty decent kit. The build kits on Santa Cruz is never great value for money, and at £7,599 I was kind of expecting to see Fox factory kit on the front of the bike. That said, the latest generation of Performance Elite stuff does work really nicely. Previously, those black stanchion forks I felt weren't super supple, but it seems that Fox has sorted that out this year, and the forks felt pretty darn good. It also comes with the latest Fit Grip 2 damper, which, as we've seen in previous tests, is a really decent damper for an enduro fork. I've had a chance to ride the Santa Cruz Bronson X01 Reserve, which comes in at £7,599. For that, you get a Fox 36 Performance Elite fork and a RockShox Super Deluxe RCT rear shock. It also gets that top-end CC frame set and their Reserve 30 wheels. I rode the regular tyred version, so that's a 2.5 inch at the front and a 2.4 at the back, and they're both Maxxis Minions, so that's the DHF and the DHR. Both of them were wide trails as well, so that's the slightly more supportive casing. It's fair to say that the rear suspension on the Bronson is very, very good, and that's something we found when the lower link driven shocks first came out on the Nomad as well. Despite the size of the bikes and despite what the bike is designed for, they actually pedal uphill really well. The rear suspension is incredibly active on sort of the smaller stuff you find on the trail, so roots, little stones, so that means traction uphill is really good. It also doesn't wallow around too bad, so it doesn't feel like you're dragging a big old bike up a hill, so it's quite nice to get to the tops. That said, it isn't a massive all-day riding bike. It's still a bike that's designed primarily for going downhill. Unfortunately, as you'd expect, it's pretty good at doing that. Yet, it's not a super long bike. So if you are looking for one of the latest breeds of enduro race bikes with a super long front centre, a massive wheelbase and incredible stability at speed, the Bronson probably isn't quite what you're looking for. But if you're looking for a bike that is loads of fun to ride and is still very capable, then the Bronson is perhaps quite a good option. The rear suspension controls everything it needs to do very well, without any particular fuss. There's not massive character to the bike necessarily, but small bumps, stutter bumps over roots and rocks, it deals with those really quite well. Bigger jumps, again, that progression towards the end of its stroke from that shock does keep things nicely controlled. Those wide, grippy tyres on the relatively stiff rims mean that cornering traction is pretty good. And in the low setting, that low BB means you can weight the bike quite nicely into those corners, engaging the side knobs of the tyres into the dirt. So it's quite a confident bike, despite not being super long again. You will have to dig deep into your pockets if you want to buy the latest Bronson or Roubion. But if you're buying a Santa Cruz, you're not doing it because you think it's really good value for money. You're buying it because it's a Santa Cruz and because you know that the rear suspension is going to work as well as the hype suggests. We'll bring you a full review as soon as we can, so keep an eye on BikeRadar.com and this channel, and in the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe.